Hello everyone. This video tutorial is dedicated to crocheting an oval basket. The basket is soft. Based on this video tutorial, you can make the same basket, but also add a folded edge. With the folded edge, the basket will be sturdier and the sides will hold their shape better. But even this version holds its sides well, because we're using 3-strand twine doubled up. Next, we'll be crocheting with classic single crochet stitches. We'll be working in a spiral. That means we'll start crocheting from the center of the basket's base, beginning with a chain of foundation stitches. Then we'll continue crocheting in a continuous spiral all the way to the end, and we'll separate the rounds from each other using a stitch marker. So, we won't be closing off each round and starting a new one, but instead we'll separate the rounds using a marker. Let's move on. We're going to make a small basket together. We'll calculate the size of the basket beforehand, before we start crocheting. Now, let's take a look at what materials we'll need for this. The materials we'll need to crochet our basket are as follows: 3-strand twine, and we'll be crocheting with 2 strands held together. As always, let me show you how. We take 1 strand from the center of the spool, another from the side of the spool, join these 2 strands together, fold them, and start crocheting. This is so the walls of the basket are stiffer and hold their shape better. Next, we'll need a crochet hook. I'm using a 5mm hook, but you can use a 6mm one as well. Scissors and a stitch marker. We'll use the marker to separate the rows. A plastic needle with a large eye. This is for when we finish crocheting the basket and have yarn tails left over, we'll need to weave them in. We'll use this needle to hide the yarn tails. A measuring tape to check the size of our basket, and if you're attaching a label, you'll also need the label itself, some thin jute twine, and a metal needle. By the way, instead of a needle, you can also use a smaller crochet hook. So, for example, I have a size 5 hook, but you can use a size 4 or even a size 3 to hide the yarn tails if you don't have a needle. We'll start crocheting from the center of the base using a chain of foundation stitches. That's why we need to decide on the size before we start making the basket. In other words, the size of the basket is calculated right at the beginning, before you start crocheting. How do you calculate the size of baskets that start with a chain of foundation stitches? So, for these kinds of baskets, we need to figure out the base size from the very beginning. How do we calculate it? To do this, we need to know what size base we want to make. In our case, the base will be 22 centimeters by 12 centimeters. So, to figure out how long the chain of foundation stitches should be, what do we need to do? We need to subtract the smaller measurement from the larger one, and that difference will be the length of our chain of foundation stitches. So, 22 minus 12 equals 10, which means I need to make a chain of foundation stitches that's 10 centimeters long. So, for example, if I need 10 centimeters, that would mean 10 stitches. So that's the kind of chain I need to make, and keep in mind that the loop that's on the hook doesn't count. It's not included in those 10 centimeters. Plus, we need to add 1 more stitch to those 10 centimeters. And that extra stitch also doesn't count toward those 10 centimeters. So, we make a chain of stitches for 10 centimeters. Once we've made the chain, we measure it, and then add 1 more stitch. And there will also be a loop on the hook. And basically, these 2 loops are not included in those 10 centimeters. After that, we can start crocheting. As for the sides, we'll control the height of the sides as we crochet. We'll crochet as many rows as we need. The size of the basket I'm about to show you how to make is 22 by 12 centimeters. That's the base. And the height of the basket sides is 9 centimeters. For a basket of this size, you'll need about 230 to 240 grams of 3-strand jute twine, doubled up. I crocheted the sides, and actually the whole basket, quite tightly, so that's why I used that amount of twine. If you crochet more loosely, you'll end up using a bit more twine. Next, we're going to move on to the oval pattern. Now I'll draw this pattern on paper, explain it to you, and walk you through it. Then, after we go over the pattern on paper, we'll move on to crocheting the base, and I'll show and explain this pattern directly on the fabric. And as I mention in every video, there's a file called Patterns where you can find all the patterns in printed form, including this soft oval crochet pattern. The oval starts with a chain of air stitches. We make a chain like this out of air stitches. How do we make the chain? I'll show you this during the crocheting process. Next, we have the hook here, and there's a loop on the hook as well. We skip this loop that's on the hook, skip this next loop, and start crocheting into this one, basically into the third chain. If you don't count the loop on the hook, then it's the second one. We crochet single stitches, meaning we make one stitch into each chain. Then, when we reach the last stitch, we need to make an increase in it, right in the last one. An increase means making extra stitches into one loop, so instead of just one stitch, you make 2 or more into the same loop. In this case, we'll make 3. This is so that we end up with an oval shape. We've made 3 stitches into one chain, and now we'll crochet back in the opposite direction, making the same single stitches, and they'll also come out of this same stitch. Just like that. So, the number of single stitches on one side is equal to the number of single stitches on the other side. This is to make sure our sides are even. Once you've finished, in this very last stitch at the end, the one we skipped at the beginning, you need to make 3 stitches into it again. Just like here, make an increase. And then, this will be the last stitch in this row, and we move on to the second row. Here, we'll place a marker, and we'll crochet the second row as follows. We crochet single stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So, we crochet single stitches on top of the previous single stitches. Done. We have 8 of them. This number of single stitches will now always be the same in every row. So, the pattern will change here on the side, but the number of single stitches on both sides will always stay the same. This specifically applies to our size, the one I'm showing you right now. If you have more chain stitches, then, accordingly, you'll have more single stitches as well. At the moment, we will have 8 on each side. Next, we have the following pattern right here. In these 3 increases that we made in the last stitch, we also need to make increases in such a way as to double these increases. That is, in each stitch, we need to crochet 2 stitches into each one. Next, we repeat these single stitches all the way up to here. Right here, we finish, and here again we have 3 stitches in one loop. We need to make 2 increases again, just like we did here. So, these 2 sides are the same. Then we move on to the next row and start again with single stitches. We crochet 8 single stitches, reach our increases, and here the pattern changes. And here, we'll start making increases after every single stitch. So, we'll do it like this: single stitch, increase, single stitch, increase, single stitch, increase. The pattern here always repeats 3 times, so we'll crochet the same way 3 times. Next, we again have our 8 single crochets, and here once more it's single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. So here, we're repeating the same pattern as before. And notice, we're already getting an oval shape thanks to our increases. Then we move on to the next row, and again crochet 8 single crochets. Once that's done, the pattern changes here. Now we'll be making increases after every 2 single crochets, meaning it'll be 2 single crochets, then an increase. But since we want to get a nice, smooth oval like this, and not an oval like this, we won't be making increases directly above previous increases. If we do increases right above the previous increases, then in those spots where the increases stack, we'll end up with corners. To avoid that and to get a smooth oval like this, we shift the increases and make them above the single crochets. So we'll start with an increase, then crochet 2 single crochets. Again, an increase, 2 single crochets, increase, 2 crochets, and that's how we'll get an oval like this. Next, we repeat our 8 single crochets again, and here we start again. Increase, 2 crochets, increase, 2 crochets, increase, 2 crochets. Now, in the previous row, we had 1 single crochet and an increase. Then we get 2 single crochets and an increase. In the next row, we'll have 3 single crochets and an increase, then 4 crochets and an increase, and so on. With each row, the number of single crochets between increases will go up by 1. So if we have 2 now, that means the next row will be 3 single crochets and an increase. Basically, you keep following this pattern until you want to stop, until you reach the desired size for the base. In other words, the number of single crochets will increase by 1 each time. And we will start each time by alternating this part of our pattern with single crochets and increases. So if we started with a single crochet here, the next row starts with an increase, then again with a single crochet, then again with an increase. This is so that we don't end up with an oval shape with corners, but instead get a nice, smooth oval shape. So I think the pattern is clear now. As we continue knitting, I will explain everything to you in detail once again. And before we start crocheting the basket and making the chain stitches, I want to show you one thing. It often happens that after we've finished the first row, little holes appear in the center. And since that's not very pretty, you can close up those holes using a little braid like this. To make this braid, and to make the knitting easier right from the start, we leave a tail of about 70 centimeters, and as we go along, I'll show you how we can close up those holes. Let's measure out a 70 centimeter tail now. Just like this, and from here, we'll start making our chain stitches. I make the very first stitch like this, similar to an amigurumi ring, just a little cross, and then I pull up the first loop like this. Next, I pull on both strands to tighten it. Now I have a loose loop on my hook, and to tighten it, I pull on the working yarn. That's the yarn coming from the skein, the long one. And our 70 centimeters is the tail end. I pull and tighten it. It's tightened. Don't make the stitches too tight on the hook, so we can easily work the next row. Because if the stitches are too tight, it'll be hard to crochet into them, especially for increases. Next, we need to make a chain. We make a chain of foundation chains about 10 centimeters long. Here's how we do it. grab the working yarn and pull it through the loop on the hook. Grab the working yarn again and pull it through the loop on the hook, and again grab the working yarn and pull it through the loop on the hook. These are the foundation chains. We've already made 1, 2, 3 chains. Now let's continue. And remember a very important point. The loop that stays on the hook should always be the same size so that our chain comes out even. The evenness of our fabric depends on this. If the chain is small, then big, then small again, then big again, our fabric will end up stretched in some places and tight in others, and it will look really messy. Let's keep crocheting. Make sure the chain on the hook stays the same size. Try to keep the chain as even as possible. Done with this part. Now take a measuring tape and check what we've got. The loop that's currently on our hook doesn't count. We made a bit more, up to 11 centimeters, so we remove 1 stitch. Then we check again. Now it's 10 centimeters. Gently pull and even it out. I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 chains. The 11th is on the hook. It doesn't count, and I still need to make 1 more chain. I've made it, and it also doesn't count toward those 10 centimeters. It's an extra, an additional chain. Next, I move on to crocheting the first row. Here's what I do. I'll crochet along one side, making a single crochet into each chain. When I reach the last chain, I'll make an increase in it. That is, I'll crochet 3 additional single crochets into that chain. Then I'll turn and crochet 1 single crochet into each chain again, and my single crochets from both sides will come out of the same chain. They will run parallel to each other. And then in a last corner stitch, which will be right here, I'll also make an increase. I'll add 3 more single crochets there. And that's where my first row will end. Why do we need increases in the first row? In other words, why do we crochet extra stitches on the sides? It's so we can get the shape we want. So in order to get an oval shape, we need the following formula. In this very last stitch, we need to crochet 3 single crochets, and in the stitch at the very end on this side, we also need to crochet 3 single crochets, 3 increases. In this case, we'll start to see an oval base forming. Now let's begin crocheting. We do it as follows. We don't insert the hook into the stitch, we skip it and then into this one. So into this one, which is like 1, 2, 3, into the 3rd stitch, we insert the hook right into the center of the chain, grab the working yarn, and the loops on the hook should all be the same size so that the width of our row stays even. Grab the working yarn, pull it through, and this loop on the hook should also always be the same size so that our sides are straight and overall our basket is even. Done. Next, I find the next chain and insert the hook into its center and do the same thing. Pull up a loop at the same height, grab the working yarn, pull it through. Done. Then I do the same thing again. Center, hook in, grab the working yarn, pull up a loop, make sure the stitches are even, and crochet. It's very important not to make the first row too tight so that it's easier to crochet the second row later. If we make it too tight, especially these edge stitches where we'll be making increases, it'll be really hard to make the increases in the next row because we'll need to crochet several stitches into this one stitch, and if it's too tight, the hook just won't go through. So don't crochet too tightly, at least not on these edge stitches. All right, let's continue crocheting. We made a single crochet, and then moving on, we made another one just like before. And so we keep crocheting one single crochet into each chain until we reach the very last chain. There, I've crocheted it. Now here's my last chain, and into it I need to crochet 3 additional single crochets, that is, make an increase to get an oval shape. I insert the hook, hold the tail, and crochet. 1. Crocheting into the same stitch again. 2. And into the same stitch again. 3. And when I crochet these 3 single crochets, it turns out that one chain is worked on this side, 2 in the center, the central chain, and the next chain, the next single crochet, is worked on the new side. I've finished that. Next, we don't touch the tail yet, we just leave it for now. Now we'll finish crocheting to the end, and then I'll show you what to do with this tail. Let's keep going. From each stitch, there's a single crochet coming out on this side, on the bottom side. Now we need to insert the hook right here in the center, exactly where this single crochet comes out, and the next one, so that our stitches run parallel on both sides, like this. This is so that the number of stitches on both sides is the same and we don't get confused. Crochet them, but don't pull too tight. Like this. Carefully insert the hook right here, right at the base of these stitches. Break time equals 0.5s / and make single crochets like this. Keep going. We have one last stitch left. Here it is. We also crochet one stitch into it. Now let's go ahead and even it out a bit. And now we have this edge chain left. Here it is. Break time equals 0.5s / if it's difficult to insert the hook under both loops of the chain. You can simply take just one loop. I always use just one loop, so I don't struggle. It still turns out neat and pretty. Break time equals 0.5s / so take one loop from the very edge chain and make increases into it. Crochet 3 stitches into this loop. I've finished crocheting, and now I've completed the very first row. Break time equals 0.5s / Notice how the shape of an oval is starting to form. This is because of those increases of 3 stitches each at the very edge side stitches. Break time equals 0.5s / now. After we've done that, since we crocheted the stitches into the same base on each side, the number of these stitches should be the same. Break time equals 0.5s / so we've made our 3 stitches as an increase, and now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 single stitches between the increases, and then here are my 3 increases again. Break time equals 0.5s / that's my first row. Break time equals 0.5s / now. Before moving on to the second row, we're going to work on the center of the row to hide these holes. Break time equals 0.5s / they're not very noticeable, but sometimes, for example, if you're a beginner and the very beginning is a bit messy, the holes can be bigger. Break time equals 0.5s / there's a solution for this. what I do is insert the hook into the very first hole, grab the tail, and gently pull it through. Without stretching it too much, just pull out a small loop. Break time equals 0.5s /, then I find the second hole, insert the hook into it as well, and pull through. A loop, so now I have 2 loops on the hook, both the same size, not too stretched out. Now I pull one loop through the other, like this, making a slip stitch. Next, I find the next hole, insert the hook again, pull the tail through, making sure my loops are the same size, and pull one loop through the other. Then again, I find the next hole, insert the hook, pull the yarn through, and pull one loop through the other. If you don't keep the chain, the loop on a hook, the same size, your chain will end up uneven and different sizes. So don't forget that the loop on the hook should also be the same size. Then, again in each hole, I insert the hook and work through each opening like this. Keep working like this. Again and again. This process keeps repeating itself over and over. I have only 2 holes left now, just 2 remaining. So I worked through them, and in the last opening, I carefully insert the hook, pull the tail gently through, pull one loop through the other, and then pull the tail all the way through. And this is what I get. Now I won't have any holes in the center. And now I'm going to pull this tail to the wrong side. I insert the hook into the edge hole, grab the tail, and pull it through to this side. I pull it tight. And now I'm going to crochet this tail in as I work the second row. We also work the second row according to the pattern, which will include increases. How are we going to work the second row? Starting from this very first stitch, under which we will insert the hook, we need to make 9 single crochets. We've crocheted up to our increase. Remember, in the previous row we made an increase with 3 single crochets. In this increase, we need to make 6 single crochets, meaning we double the previous increase. There were 3, now there will be 6. We'll do it like this. In the first increase, 2 single crochets. In the next 2, and in the next 2 as well. So that's 2 single crochets in each stitch for a total of 6. Next, we'll crochet back, and just like before, we'll make 9 single crochets here. Then we reach our next increase from the previous row. Again, 3 single crochets, and we do the same as before. 2 single crochets in the first increase, 2 in the second, and 2 in the third, for a total of 6. We'll finish the row, and at the same time, we'll be crocheting in the tail, so we don't have to come back to it later. Now take the tail, lay it like this so you don't lose it, then insert the hook under the very first chain. Grab the working yarn and pull it through. Our tail ends up between the loop on the hook and the working yarn, and we crochet it. The first single crochet. There should be 9 in total, so we need to make 8 more. Keep crocheting over the tail. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can pull the tail a bit tighter. 6, then 7, and then pause. 8 and 9. The tail got crocheted in. If you still have a bit of tail left, you can trim it. I've made 9 single crochets. Here's the end of the tail sticking out, so I'll just cut it off like this. Next, I've reached my increases. Now, in each of them, I'll crochet 2 stitches. I'll get 6 in total. 1. I crochet the second stitch into the same place. Done. Next increase. 1. And 2 into the same place. Done. And again moving on. 1. And again 2. I've finished the increases. Now I have 9 single crochets again. Let's crochet and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've crocheted 9 single crochets. Now I need to make increases. Crochet my increases. Here are my 3 stitches, and in each of them I crochet 2 stitches. So I make an increase, doubling the increases from the previous row. From 3 increases we get 6. 2. And here. 1 and 2. That's it. We've finished the row. Now straighten everything out and just take a look at what we've got. Here's our oval. Next, let's move on to the third row. For the third row, we'll crochet according to the following pattern. We'll also crochet 9 single crochets up to our previous increases, and from that point, we'll start alternating. In this spot, instead of just increases, we'll alternate increases and single crochets. So we'll do a single crochet, then an increase, a single crochet, then an increase, a single crochet, then an increase. That means in these 6 stitches that we made as increases in the previous row, right here on the side, we'll now crochet following the formula. Single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase. If it's hard for you to tell where the increases are, I'll mark the spots with a marker, so it's a bit clearer for you. Here's where my first increase starts. I'll mark it now. See, 2 stitches are crocheted into 1 loop. 1, 2. Next, another increase, 3, 4, and 5, 6. And in this last 6th stitch, I'll also put a marker so you can see that this is where the increase pattern will always be. Here, we always crochet 9 single crochets. This is because of our basket size. If your basket is bigger, there will be a different number of single crochets here, but on both sides, the number should be the same. Let's mark the increases on this side as well. Here's my increase starting. So from this stitch, 2 stitches come out. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 6 stitches. And I'll also mark this last stitch with an increase. This is just to make it visually easier for you to see where the increases are. Now, how do we crochet the increases in this row? As I said, the pattern repeats on both sides. Here, we have the same number of single stitches, 9 stitches, 9 single crochets. Now, let's start crocheting from the very first stitch and also make 9 single crochets. Please go ahead and crochet these 9 stitches on your own up to the marker, and then we'll do the increase together. I've finished the single crochets. Now I'm moving on to the increase pattern and removing the marker. And now I follow the next pattern, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, single crochet, increase, and so on. Break time equals 0.5s / I've just finished the single crochet and now I carefully place a marker on this stitch. This is exactly where my increase pattern will start in the next row. Break time equals 0.5s / then I find the next stitch and make an increase in it. So now I've done 2 stitches. Break time equals 0.5s / now I do another single crochet, done. Next I have a slight increase, 1 and 2, meaning I made 2 stitches into 1 loop. Now the pattern again, a single crochet, and I remove the marker. And into this stitch, I make my last increase, 1 and 2. Now I put the marker back onto the stitch, the one right before the loop on the hook. So it turns out that I've worked the pattern on one side, and now I crochet 9 single crochets again. Please make those 9 stitches on your own. Now I've made 9 stitches. I remove the marker and we repeat the pattern a second time. Crochet a single stitch, then put the marker back onto this stitch. The one right before the hook, right here, and in the next stitch, we make an increase, 1, 2. Next, we repeat the pattern again, a single crochet, increase, 1, and right here, 2. And once again make a single crochet stitch. Now carefully remove the marker. Increase. So the pattern with increases is repeated 3 times, meaning single, increase, single, increase, single, increase 3 times. Now we put the marker back on the stitch right before the hook, and it turns out that we finished this row as well. Let's straighten it out and see what we've got. Here's the oval we have. Now let's move on to the next row, the 4th one, and we'll crochet it according to the following pattern. Again, we'll have 9 single crochets. We'll get to our increases, and the pattern will be like this. Increase. We'll start with an increase, 2 single crochet, increase, 2 single crochets, increase, 2 single crochets. Why are we starting this row with an increase? Because we won't be making increases directly above the previous increases. This way we'll get a smooth oval, a gentle curve. If we make an increase right above another increase, the oval will end up a bit angular. So since in the previous row we started with a single crochet, now in this single crochet we'll make an increase in the next row. And then the following row will start with a single crochet again, and the next one after that with an increase. This way we'll alternate the rows like this. All right, now let's continue and crochet this part according to the pattern. The part with the increases repeats again. We have 9 single crochets, and the pattern for this section repeats here as well. An increase, 2 single crochets, an increase, 2 single crochets. We crochet 9 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 9. Done. We remove the marker, and from this point the pattern with increases begins. We start this row with an increase, since the previous one started with a single crochet. We make an increase, meaning we crochet 2 stitches into one loop. Let's put a marker right away so we don't get confused later. We place it right here. The first stitch of the increase, now the second stitch, done. Break time equals 0.5s /next. According to the pattern, we have 2 single crochets. 1, 2. Break time equals 0.5s /. Now we have another increase. 2 stitches in one loop. Break time equals 0.5s / again. 2 single crochets. 1, 2. 2, and for the third time we repeat the pattern. Once again we have an increase. And then we crochet 2 single stitches. 1, remove the marker and crochet the second stitch. Done. Now put the marker back on the stitch. Right here. That's it, we've finished. Look how even the oval is turning out. Now please crochet 9 single stitches on your own, and here we repeat the same pattern as before. Increase 2 single stitches, increase 2 single stitches, increase 2 single stitches. And that will finish our 4th row. Then we'll move on to the next one. I've finished the 4th row, and notice how even the sides of our oval are. This is because we're not making increases on top of increases. Next, we move on to the 5th row, and the pattern in the area where we make increases will change a little. Again, we'll crochet 9 single stitches. Then in the stitch with the marker, we'll crochet a single stitch. Since we started the previous row with an increase, now we start with a single stitch. In this row, the pattern will be 3 single stitches, increase 3 single stitches, increase 3 single stitches, increase at the marker. Then again 9 single stitches, and the pattern repeats here. The row is finished. Now, a few words about how we will continue with our pattern. The pattern is worked according to the same principle, where we repeat the pattern here 3 times in the same way. We will have 3 increases, but the number of single stitches between the increases will keep increasing. And with each row, the number of stitches between the increases will go up by 1. That's the pattern. So, first we worked 1 single stitch and then an increase. In the previous row, we did 2 single stitches and then an increase. Now we're going to work 3 single stitches, then an increase, then 5, 6, and so on until we finish the piece. Each time in every row, the number of single stitches between increases will go up by 1. And here our stitches remain at 9 just like before. This is for our size. So let's work through this part and this part together, and then you can finish the rest on your own. Let's crochet our single stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4. I've done 9. Now I carefully remove the marker and continue. 3 single stitches according to the pattern. I put the marker right back here just to be sure. Next, the following single stitch, 2. Next, the 3rd single stitch is done. Now I have an increase. 1, 2. Again, I crochet 3 single stitches. 1, 2, 3. Now there's another increase. 1 and 2. Next, I repeat the pattern again. 3 single stitches, increase 1, 2, 3. I carefully remove the markerage break time equals 0.5s/, and now make the last increase on this side 1 and 2. I put the marker back here, and then you finish this row on your own just like before. I finished the 5th row, and now I'm going to measure my base and see how many more rows I need to crochet for my size. Just a reminder, I want to end up with 22 by 12 centimeters. Right now I have 20 by 10, about 10.5. I think I'll need to crochet one more row. And with that, I'll finish crocheting the base. Let's crochet this 6th row together now. What pattern are we going to use? 9 single crochets. Next, starting from the marker, we begin following the pattern. For single crochets, then an increase, yes, but we'll start with an increase this time because in the previous row we started with a single crochet. So it goes increase 1, 2, 3 for single crochets, then again an increase 1, 2, 3 for single crochets, increase 1, 2, 3 for single crochets. Then once again we crochet 9 single crochets, and here the pattern repeats. Increase for single crochets, increase for single crochets, increase for single crochets. And that's the end of the 6th row. After that, we'll measure our dimensions again, and if we calculated everything correctly, meaning the number of starting chain stitches, then we should get a size of 22 by 12. Now, please crochet this part on your own, where there are single crochets up to the marker. We'll crochet this section together, and then you can continue on your own again. I've crocheted the single crochets and reached the marker. Now I remove the marker and start the pattern. My pattern starts with an increase, so I crochet the increase and put the marker back right here. Next, another single crochet into the same stitch. Done. Now I have 4 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next, another increase. First stitch. Second stitch. Now again for single crochets 1, 2, 3. For slightly increase. And once more, now let us repeat 1, 2. So after working 3 stitches and into this very last stitch, I make the final single crochet. Break time equals 0.5s/. That's it. This part of the pattern is now finished. Now you continue on your own, also making 9 single crochets here. Repeat the pattern for this edge and finish right here. After that, we'll measure our piece together. I finish the 6th row and I get a base like this. It sticks out a little, and to get rid of these uneven edges, you can steam the bottom and then it will be perfectly flat, but it will become a bit softer. So since when you steam jute, it becomes more manageable, but the base will be flat. Next, I want to measure the length and width I got. 22 centimeters long and 12 centimeters wide. I planned for the base to be 22 by 12. For that, I calculated how many chain stitches I needed to make in centimeters. So it turns out my calculations were correct. Now you can remove these markers. Since we won't be making any more increases, they're no longer needed. I'll leave just one marker, this one, and it will serve as my reference point for where the sides begin. And at the end, ideally, we should stop right across from this marker when we finish crocheting all the sides and close the round. But as I've mentioned in other videos, that's the ideal case. Often, when we're working in a spiral, we have to adjust the sides a bit to keep everything even. If we're crocheting in closed rounds, crochet a round, close it, crochet the next round, close it, then our sides are even all the way around. But when we crochet in a spiral, the sides can end up a little higher in some places and lower in others. And we have to make adjustments. So if it turns out that the sides have ended up really uneven when we stop here at the end, we can either crochet a bit further or stop a little earlier to even out the side. So we don't necessarily finish the sides right across from this marker. Now I'm removing the markers we no longer need and starting to crochet the sides. We crochet the sides like this. Insert the hook under each chain and crochet one single crochet into each chain. We don't do any more increases. Now we'll start crocheting this row together, the first row of the sides. After that, you'll finish the first row up to the marker on your own. I'll do the same and show you how my sides are coming out. After that, you'll continue crocheting the sides on your own until the basket is finished. Mine will be 9 centimeters tall, which is 7 rows. So I'll crochet a total of 7 rows and then do the edging. This is how we crochet the sides of the basket, just like this without any increases. Crochet a bit, adjust, take a look, and keep going. Now, please finish up to the marker on your own, and we'll meet again when it's time to move on to the second row. I finished crocheting the first row, and now let's take a look at how the sides are behaving. They're starting to curl up, and you can see it clearly. That's because we're not doing any increases. And accordingly, we're missing extra stitches for our fabric, our oval, to stay flat. That's it. Now this is the right side of the basket for me. I need to turn the bottom out like this and start crocheting this way with the base flipped over. Next, I'll continue crocheting exactly the same way as we did the first row of the sides, and I'll use my hands to adjust and shape the sides, helping them, so to speak, to form in the right direction. Now, when we crochet the stitches, we need to make them all the same height when they're on the hook, and make sure the stitches are even so the row width stays consistent. This is very important. An important point is to watch our chain. It should also be even. If we pull it too tight somewhere, our sides will lean toward the center. If we crochet too loosely, this side will first of all be longer, and second, it will lean in the opposite direction, and our sides will be asymmetrical. So make sure to keep the chain even, and then our sides will be straight. For this, we crochet up to 10 stitches, then stop, adjust the stitches, shape our side, and check that everything is even and straight. If so, then everything will be positioned correctly and our sides will be straight. At this point, crochet the same number of stitches again and check again. And in this way, every 10 or maybe every 15 stitches, you really need to stop and check how your stitches are laying, so that later, when we've crocheted almost all the sides, we don't discover that one of the sides is crooked and have to unravel it. That's it. Now please continue crocheting the sides on your own until the end. We'll meet again when we move on to the edging. Let's go. I've finished the sides and notice that I didn't finish directly opposite this marker. Technically, I should have finished the rows of the sides right here, but it turns out that this side is lower than this one when I reached the marker. So to visually even out the sides, because when you crochet in a spiral, there's a difference. Some parts of the side might end up a bit higher, some a bit lower. So I kept crocheting to even out these sides and continued until this point right here. On the side, there will be a bit of a step. Here it's a little lower, here it's a little higher. But when I do the edging, I'll cover it all up and I'll sew a label here so the step won't really be noticeable. So I'll do it like this. Here it's a little higher and here it's a bit lower, but thanks to the label, it's really not noticeable at all. Now I'll show you how to do the edging along the rim. The edging is done to give the basket a finished look. Plus, the edging makes the top of the basket sturdier and helps the sides hold their shape better. This helps support the shape, like here we're making an oval, and we're doing the edging along the rim with slip stitches. Insert the hook into the next chain, pull up the working yarn, and make sure the loops on the hook are all the same height. Then pull one loop through the other like this. Again, insert the hook, pull up the working yarn, make sure the loops are the same size, pull one through the other and repeat. Grab the yarn, pull it up, pull one loop through the other, and once more together, pull up, pull through, and you get this kind of chain. The chain should be even so that the edging looks nice and neat. One thing, don't make the chain too tight, or the basket will start to lean toward the center. The top will curl in if you pull the chains too tight, but don't make the chains too loose either, or the basket will take on a bit of a trapezoid shape at the top, because loose chains will make it lean outward, away from the center. So make the chains the same way you did here. Don't make it too tight or too loose. Now, please go ahead and work the edging on your own all the way to our very first slip stitch. By the way, you can mark it with a stitch marker. Make the first stitch and mark it right away. And we'll stop one stitch before our very first slip stitch, and here we'll make the final stitch. So please finish this edging on your own, and then together we'll do the last stitch of the edging. I've done it as well. I've reached my very first stitch, the one I started the edging with. I marked it with a stitch marker so it's clear for you, and I left just one stitch, one single crochet, before this edging unworked. Now I'm going to close the round. I removed the hook. I need to cut the working yarn and leave a tail of about 10 to 15 centimeters. Cut it off. Next, you need to pull this loop through to the front side. Tighten the yarn a little. And now we make the last stitch. I do it with a needle. You can also do it with a crochet hook that's a bit smaller in diameter. If we're crocheting with a size 5, then use a size 4 or 3. So I've threaded the yarn, the tails, into the needle. And now what do? I pass this loop, the one that's left, through and insert the hook, or rather the needle in this case, like this, into the very first loop we had, the slip stitch, and I pull it through and tighten it. I need to tighten the new loop and make it the same size as my braids so you can't see where I closed the row. I pull it tighter. So I've made the first half of this braid the bottom part. Now I need to make the second half. So I insert the needle right here where my second half comes out. Right here. And on the wrong side, the needle should come out under the bar. So I insert it here and bring it out under the bar. Let me try to do that now, right under the bar. The bar is located right under the loop, under our braid. Pull it through. See, there's a big loop. I need to tighten it so that my braid looks as even as possible. You can remove the marker and smooth everything out a bit here. So I've tightened it and this is what I get. Honestly, I could have stopped somewhere around here and attached the label, but I see two identical baskets. And in the first basket, I stopped right here, so the labels will be in the same spot on both. It's not a big deal. When I sew on the label, this transition will be smoothed out, so there's nothing critical here. So we've closed the row and made this last stitch. Now we turn the basket over and we'll hide the tail. I hide the tails separately when I'm working with 3-strand twine, because if I hide both tails at once, you can see them in the fabric. I like the inside of the basket to look nice too, with the tails hidden well. So I tighten the loop once more and then start weaving the tail under the stitches inside, under any stitches like this for example, just pulling it through. Insert the needle under the loops and pull the yarn through accordingly. Then find the next stitch and do the same thing. Pull it through. Keep going. Find any stitches and pull the yarn through again. This is how you can securely fasten the yarn. Make a loop. For example, here my yarn is already running through. So I'll insert the needle here again and gently loop the yarn around like this, carefully tightening the knot. Break time equals 0.5s/. Then I keep going. You can make about 2 more stitches and then cut the yarn. I'll just pull it through here and that's it. That's all. Notice that you absolutely can't see where this tail goes through here. Next, I just trim off whatever is left, and that's it. Here's the result. Please hide this tail yourself in the same way. I've finished crocheting the entire basket, hidden the last tail, sewn on the label, and shaken out the basket. After we crochet the basket, the fibers shed, not just onto the table, but also inside the basket. So you need to either shake the basket out well, vacuum it, or use a lint roller to remove the fibers so there's nothing left inside. Now the basket is ready. One more thing. Besides making a basket like this, you can also add a cuff to it. That is, crochet a bit higher, fold it down, and you'll have an oval basket with a cuff. For a basket with a cuff, you don't need to make this braided edging. After finishing the last row, you just close the row, hide the yarn, and make the cuff. The cuff can be any width you like, and thanks to it, your basket will be even sturdier than without one, because the cuff really helps the basket walls hold their shape. So you can make this version as well.